Time and space has a strange quality. Days blur into months, months into years. For Jiwon Park, now 5 years into commanding the Inheritance, life had become both routine and extraordinary. The joint research program had evolved into something unexpected. Not just scientific collaboration, but cultural exchange. The Inheritance, once simply a weapon waiting for war, had become a symbol of something larger. A place where species learned from each other, where human chaos met Velcrin precision and Thulian philosophy. Jiwon stood on the observation deck, watching construction crews work on the Inheritance's exterior. Mixed species, all of them. They were installing new defensive systems, combining council technology with precursor designs. The result was something neither humanity nor the older species could have created alone. "Captain Park?" A young voice interrupted her thoughts. Ensign Taehyun Lee, fresh from Earth's Naval Academy, approached nervously. "The custodian says you wanted to see me." "Yes, come here." Jiwon gestured to the window. "What do you see?" Taehyun looked confused. "Construction crews. Mixed species teams installing shield emitters. What else?" The ensign studied the scene more carefully. "The Velcrin are working on mathematical calculations. The Thulians are handling dimensional alignment. The human crews are doing physical installation. And they're all teaching each other. The humans are learning Velcrin math. The Velcrin are learning human problem solving." "Good. That's what I wanted you to see. The Inheritance isn't just a ship. It's a bridge. Between species. Between ways of thinking. Between past and future." She turned to face him. "I'm getting old. Not dying tomorrow, but I'm 53. The custodian projects I have maybe 30 more years of optimal neural interface capability. After that, the Inheritance will need a new captain." Taehyun's eyes widened. "I'm not ready." "I couldn't possibly, not yet. But in 30 years? Maybe. That's why I've recommended you for command training. You and 27 other candidates from Earth, Luna, Mars, and the outer colonies. The next generation of Inheritance commanders. But the ship only responds to your neural patterns. For now. But the custodian and I have been working on something. A way to transfer the bond gradually over time. So when I can no longer serve, the Inheritance will already know its next captain, and the one after that." She pulled up a holographic timeline. "We have 1195 years until the projected threat arrives. That's roughly 30 to 40 generations of human commanders. Each one needs training, testing, and bonding with the ship. Each one needs to understand not just tactics and technology, but philosophy and purpose. That's a lot of pressure." "Yes. Welcome to humanity's burden." She smiled slightly. "The precursors gave us the Inheritance because we're chaotic and unpredictable. But we're also mortal. We die, we forget. We lose perspective across generations. That's our challenge. Maintaining purpose and preparation across centuries when the threat seems abstract." Over the following years, the Inheritance project grew. What started as joint research evolved into an academy. Young humans trained alongside alien scholars, learning everything from precursor technology to multi-species diplomacy. The ship itself became a university, its vast archives studied by thousands of researchers from across the galaxy. Dayun, now Chief of Language Studies, discovered something extraordinary in the precursor archives. Evidence that humanity wasn't the first one's only backup plan. There had been others. 7 other species scattered across the galaxy, each modified in subtle ways, each designed with a specific strength. "They're all gone now," Dayun explained during a research meeting. 6 died out naturally. Evolution moved them away from the precursors' changes. The 7th destroyed themselves in civil war about 50,000 years ago. Humanity is the last survivor of the precursors' legacy projects. "No pressure," Minho joked, though his face was serious. But the discovery raised uncomfortable questions. If 7 previous attempts had failed, what made humanity different? What would prevent humans from following the same path to extinction? Jiwon posed this question to the custodian one evening, alone in the command chamber. The holographic presence flickered thoughtfully. The precursors learned from each failure. The first species they modified were made too aggressive, the second too passive, the third too focused on individual achievement. Each try refined the approach. Humanity represents the 7th and final attempt. Balanced, adaptable, and critically aware of your own flaws. Aware of our flaws? Yes. The previous species either didn't recognize their weaknesses or couldn't overcome them. Humans are unique in your ability to acknowledge failings and actively work to correct them. You call it growth mindset in your psychology. The precursors called it adaptive self-correction. It's your species' most valuable trait. 10 years into the Inheritance Project, Earth's government proposed something radical. The Guardian Corps, a permanent organization dedicated to preparing for the distant threat. Not just humans, but volunteers from all council species who believed in the mission. A standing force that would train across generations, maintaining readiness for a war their descendants would fight. The proposal faced immediate opposition. Many council species saw it as militarization. Others worried it would create a multi-species military with divided loyalties. But Ambassador Kang, now Earth Secretary of Interstellar Affairs, argued passionately for it. "We have 12 centuries to prepare for an existential threat," she said before the Galactic Council. "That's not too much time. It's barely enough. Every previous civilization that faced this entity did so unprepared, because they couldn't maintain focus across such vast timescales. We must be different. We must stay ready." After months of debate, a compromise was reached. The Guardian Corps would be established, but with strict oversight. Command would be multi-species, though Inheritance captaincy remained a human position. Its mandate was purely defensive. Preparation for the coming threat, not intervention in current politics. Hyun became the Corps' first commander, serving 12 years before retiring. His successor was Ji-ha Yang, who had served on the Inheritance's security detail. The pattern was established. Humans leading but never alone, always in partnership with other species. 20 years in, something unexpected happened. Young people, human and non-human alike, began treating the Guardian Corps like a sacred calling. Not just military assignment. A trust, protection of the future, service to species not yet born. Ji-won attended the graduation ceremony for the 10th class of Guardian trainees. She was 57 now, her hair graying, her face lined with decades of command. She watched young people, barely old enough to vote on their homeworlds, take oaths of service. "I swear to stand ready," they recited in a dozen languages, "to prepare for the day that may never come in my lifetime, to train for a battle I may never fight, to protect futures I will never see, for humanity, for all species, for the galaxy itself." It was almost religious in its intensity, secular in its structure, a faith built not on divine promise but on practical necessity. Believe in the future. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. "They understand," the custodian observed, manifesting beside Ji-won as she watched the ceremony. "Not just intellectually but emotionally. They have accepted their role in a story that goes beyond individual lifetimes." "The precursors would be proud," Ji-won said softly. "Or terrified. You have turned a weapon into a movement. The Inheritance was designed as a tool of war. You have made it a symbol of hope." 30 years after the Inheritance awakened, Ji-won Park began transferring command. It was gradual, carefully managed. Commander Taehyun Lee spent months in neural synchronization sessions, learning to interface with the ship systems, while Ji-won's patterns guided the process. The transition took 3 years. When it was complete, Ji-won felt the loss like a missing limb. The Inheritance had been part of her mind for 3 decades. Without it, the world seemed quieter, smaller, but also lighter. The burden was no longer hers alone. At her retirement ceremony, representatives from 47 species attended. The Galactic Council, once suspicious, now celebrated the Inheritance as a model of cooperation. Young people across the galaxy saw the Guardian Corps as prestigious service. Universities taught precursor philosophy alongside modern science. "You've done something remarkable," Ambassador Soo-hyun told Ji-won privately. "You took a revelation that could have torn the galactic community apart and used it to bring us closer together." "I just did what humans do," Ji-won replied. "Made mistakes, learned from them, and stubbornly refused to give up." She spent her retirement years teaching at the Inheritance Academy, sharing experiences with new generations, answering questions, warning about the dangers of certainty and the necessity of doubt, reminding them that being chosen didn't mean being perfect. It meant being willing to try. Ji-won died at 87 peacefully, surrounded by former crew members from a dozen different species. Her funeral was attended by thousands, broadcast across the galaxy. The Guardian Corps flew overhead in formation, a multi-species fleet that would have been unimaginable a lifetime ago. 18 months after the inheritance awakened, Jiwan had learned 3 things. First, commanding an ancient warship was exhausting. Second, the Galactic Council was paranoid. Third, someone was trying to kill her. The first attempt was subtle, a malfunction in her environmental suit during a routine inspection outside the ship. Hyun's security team found sabotage, tiny explosives designed to break her oxygen supply in space. The second attempt was more direct, a plasma charge hidden in her quarters on the research station. Daeun found it by accident while delivering translation notes. Now 4 attempts later, Jiwan never slept in the same place twice. She moved between the inheritance, the research station, and secure Earth facilities. Her schedule was known only to a few trusted people. Hyun had increased security protocols 4 times. It still wasn't enough. "We have a problem," Minho announced, entering the inheritance's command chamber where Jiwan was reviewing tactical simulations. Someone accessed the precursor archives, specifically the sections on the inheritance's weapon systems and vulnerabilities. Jiwan felt cold.
That's impossible.
Only I can access those sections. The ship's neural interface requires human brain patterns, specifically my authorization. I know, but someone did it anyway. Minho showed her the access logs. 3 days ago, during your diplomatic visit to the Velkrin homeworld, someone used your neural signature to download 18 terabytes of sensitive data. Who? That's the problem. The trail leads to an Earth-based server, then disappears into encrypted channels. Whoever did this is very skilled at hiding. Hyun entered the chamber, his expression grim. "We've been compromised. I recommend we lock down the inheritance and suspend the joint research program until we find the leak. The Council will see that as a treaty violation," Jiwan warned. "They're already nervous about human control of the ship. If we cut off access, they'll claim we're hiding something." "We are hiding something," Hyun countered. "We're hiding that someone, possibly in our own program, is trying to steal precursor weapons technology. If that gets out, it'll prove every fear the Council has about humanity." Jiwan stood and paced. The custodian's presence flickered to life, its holographic form appearing beside her. "There is another possibility," it said. "The breach may not be from your side." "What do you mean?" "The Velkrin have been studying human neural patterns for months, supposedly to understand why only your species can bond with the inheritance. They have extensive scans of human brain activity, including yours. They could theoretically have created an approximation of your neural signature." Minho's eyes widened. "They're trying to hack the ship. The whole joint research program was covered to gather enough data to bypass the human-specific interface." "We don't know that," Jiwan cautioned. "This could be anyone. The Velkrin, the Thulians, a group within Earth's government, or someone completely unknown. We can't accuse Council species without proof." But the seed of doubt was planted. It grew rapidly over the following weeks. The joint research program began fracturing under pressure. The mixed species crew that had seemed promising was now divided. Human researchers felt like their alien colleagues were spying. Non-human scientists resented being suspected and treated as security risks. Trust, the foundation of science, was breaking down. Dr. Bora Shin, a technology specialist who joined 6 months earlier, confronted Jiwan in the research station cafeteria. "We're losing them," she said bluntly, sitting across from Jiwan. "Half the non-human staff are requesting transfers. They say the security restrictions are unreasonable." "Someone is trying to steal classified information," Jiwan replied quietly. "What should I do?" "Just let them walk around with unsupervised access. You're supposed to trust your team, or at least pretend to." Bora leaned forward. "Jiwan, I've worked with Thrisakal for 6 months. He's brilliant, dedicated, and genuinely excited about the research. When you started requiring escorts for Velkrin researchers, he was devastated. He thinks you believe his entire species is trying to sabotage the project. Maybe they are, and maybe they're not. Maybe we're letting paranoia destroy exactly what the precursors wanted us to build. Cooperation between species. You know what makes humans special, according to the custodian? Our ability to work with others despite differences. Right now, we're failing that test." Jiwan didn't have a good answer. She had focused so hard on security, on protecting the inheritance and its secrets, that she hadn't noticed the human cost, or rather the multi-species cost. That evening, she called a meeting of senior research staff, human and non-human. The tension in the room was obvious. Thriskal's crystal form was dimmed, a Velkrin expression of sadness. Foreign sat apart from the humans. Even Bolu'uth seemed subdued. I owe you all an apology, G1 began. We've been investigating a security breach, and in doing so, I've created an environment of suspicion and mistrust. That wasn't my intention, but it's the result. I want to change that starting now. She explained the situation frankly. The assassination attempts, the data theft, the evidence pointing in multiple directions. I don't know who's responsible, she admitted. It could be external. It could be internal. It might even be a false flag operation designed specifically to create the division we're experiencing now. Then what do? Foran asked carefully. We trust each other, G1 said simply. We operate transparently. We share our findings, concerns, and fears. We work together to find the leak instead of assuming it's each other. That's a security risk, Yun objected. It's also the only way forward. The precursors built the inheritance for humanity, yes, but they did so because we're supposed to protect the entire galaxy. We can't do that if we're too paranoid to work with other species. Thrisakal's crystal form began to brighten. You would grant us full access again? Even knowing someone may be using that access to steal data? Yes, but with one condition. We all monitor each other, human and non-human alike. We implement a buddy system. Every data access is witnessed by someone from a different species. We make security everyone's responsibility, not just the human's burden. It was a gamble, but Jiwan was beginning to understand that gambles were humanity's specialty. Taking calculated risks with insufficient data, powered by hope and stubbornness. The program resumed, but differently. Mixed species teams worked on every project. Data access logs became public. Security became collaborative rather than restrictive. Slowly, carefully, trust began to rebuild. 2 months later, they found the leak. It wasn't the Velkrin. It wasn't the Thulians. It wasn't any of the Joint Research Program members. It was Young-Soo Han, a human engineer from the original dig team. He had been secretly sending data to a private corporation, Titan Industries, an Earth-based company that wanted to commercialize precursor technology. The assassination attempts had been their backup plan. If they couldn't steal the data, they'd kill Jiwan and seize control of the inheritance in the chaos. When confronted, Young-Soo's explanation was depressingly simple. They offered me money. A lot of money. Enough to retire to a paradise world and never worry again. I didn't think I was hurting anyone. The data would eventually be shared anyway, right? I was just accelerating the timeline. Hyun's security team arrested him. The evidence went to Earth authorities. Titan Industries executives would face prosecution under the Inheritance Treaty's classified technology laws. But the damage lingered. Jiwan sat in the command chamber, feeling tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. The betrayal hurt not because of who it was, but because it proved the custodian's warnings right. Power attracted corruption, even among humans. Especially among humans, you seem troubled, the custodian observed. One of our own betrayed us for money, not beliefs, not ideology, just greed. Yes, humans are capable of that. You are also capable of forgiveness, learning, and growth. Do not mistake one person's weakness for the species' failure. The Council will see this as proof that humans can't be trusted with the inheritance. Some will. Others will see it as proof that your security works, that you can police yourselves, and that you treat your own mistakes seriously. Perspective matters. Jiwan pulled up research reports from the past month. Despite everything, the joint program had made real progress. Mixed species teams had decoded 3 new archive sections. Thrisakal and Bora had developed a theoretical framework for understanding the inheritance's dimensional drive. Taiyun had identified linguistic patterns suggesting the precursors had contacted other galaxies before their fall. We're getting stronger, she said quietly. Humans and non-humans together. Maybe that's the real point. Maybe the inheritance isn't just about humanity. Maybe it's about what humanity can inspire in others. An interesting interpretation. Not what the precursors intended, but perhaps better than what they intended. Outside the inheritance, the research station buzzed with activity. Alien and human scientists worked side by side, sharing theories, arguing about data, laughing at translated jokes. It wasn't perfect. There were still tensions, still misunderstandings, still occasional cultural clashes. But it was working. And in 1198 years, when the real test came, maybe that would be enough. News of the inheritance spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within 3 days, 17 council representatives arrived at Kepler 442b with observation ships. The dig site transformed into a diplomatic crisis zone. G1 stood in a temporary conference dome facing a semicircle of alien dignitaries. The air was thick with translated voices and barely hidden tensions. Ambassador Trelvin of the Velkrin spoke first. His crystal body reflected harsh light around the room. Dr. Park, you must understand our position. A precursor vessel of this size cannot belong to one species. The knowledge inside must be shared equally among all civilized worlds. Must it? G1 replied calmly. She had spent 2 days inside the inheritance, learning its systems and studying its archives. The vessel chose humanity. It will not respond to any other species. Your best technicians have tried. Then we will study why, said Counselor Vix, a Thulian whose voice carried mathematical certainty. We will decode the selection system and adapt it. So technology is truly impossible to understand. Hyun leaned forward. You want to hack a ship built by the civilization that invented faster than light travel? A ship that's worked perfectly for 800 million years? We must try, Vix insisted. The alternative is letting one species control precursor technology. That is unacceptable, especially a species as young and unstable as humanity. There it was, the real concern. G1 had expected this. Humans had only achieved space travel 200 years ago. In galactic terms, they were children. The fact that ancient beings had designed humanity for some special purpose didn't sit well with species that had been exploring space for thousands of years. Unstable, G1 repeated softly. You mean unpredictable, chaotic, dangerously creative? I mean young, Trelvin corrected, though his tone suggested G1's words were more accurate. Your species still has wars. You have crime, poverty, inequality. You argue about art and philosophy as if they matter more than logic. You make decisions based on feelings rather than calculations. Yes, G1 agreed simply. We do all those things. We're messy and contradictory and often irrational, and apparently that's exactly why the precursors chose us. She activated a holographic display showing the custodian's explanation of the coming threat. The council members watched silently as projections showed futures collapsing, timelines narrowing, potential being consumed by an intelligence that valued perfect order above all else. The precursors created humanity as their answer to this, G1 explained. Not because we're better than other species, but because we're different in a specific, necessary way. We're the chaos that prevents total order. We're the variable that can't be predicted, Minho added. We've analyzed the archives. The precursors tried normal warfare against this entity. They failed. Perfect strategy, optimal weapons, flawless coordination, all predicted and countered. What they needed was something unpredictable. Something that makes choices no logical being would make. Suicide tactics? Vix asked coldly. No, Dan said. Hope tactics. There's a difference. The archives contain records of thousands of battles. Every time the precursors made the smart choice, they lost. The entity could predict optimal decision-making. What it couldn't predict was someone making the wrong choice that somehow worked anyway. She showed specific examples. A commander sacrificing a strategic position to save one civilian. A scientist abandoning efficient research to investigate something beautiful but useless. An artist creating something with no practical value that somehow inspired a breakthrough elsewhere. Humans do these things constantly. We make irrational choices that create unexpected outcomes. This is ridiculous, Trelvin declared. You're suggesting that being inefficient is a survival advantage? No, G1 said. We're suggesting that creativity is a survival advantage. Imagination is a survival advantage. The ability to see possibilities beyond pure logic is a survival advantage. Yes, sometimes that looks inefficient, but it's also what lets humans innovate, dream, and try things that have never been tried. A new voice entered the discussion. Ambassador Soo-hyun Kang, Earth's representative to the Council, had been silent until now. She was a skilled diplomat, known for navigating complex multi-species politics. The Council should consider a compromise, Soo-hyun suggested. The inheritance remains under human control, as the precursors intended. However, we establish a joint research program. Human scientists work with Council scientists to study the vessel and prepare for the coming threat. We share knowledge where appropriate, but humans maintain final authority over the ship's systems. Unacceptable, Vix said immediately. We cannot grant one species such power. Can you afford not to? Hyun countered. In 1200 years something is coming that destroyed the precursors. You want to face that without the tool they specifically designed to fight it? We have 1,200 years to develop our own solutions, Trelevan argued. The precursors had millions of years, Jiwan reminded him. They were more advanced than any current species. They still lost. Maybe it's time to consider that their solution, uncomfortable as it makes you, might be right. The meeting devolved into argument. Species representatives broke into their native languages. Translation systems struggled with the emotional intensity. Accusations flew about human supremacy, council overreach, resource hoarding, and discrimination. Finally, Counselor Ranik of the Narvali Collective raised a tentacle for silence. Their species was known for wisdom and meditation. Perhaps, Ranik said slowly, their voice musical. We ask the wrong question. We debate ownership and control. But the custodian spoke of training. Dr. Park, what has the inheritance been teaching you? Jiwan hesitated, then decided on honesty. It's teaching me responsibility. The archives contain weapons capable of destroying solar systems, defense shields that could protect entire planets, navigation systems that could open doorways anywhere in the galaxy. But the custodian spends most time showing me the consequences of misused power, case studies of civilizations that gained too much technology too quickly, records of the precursors' own mistakes. She looked around the chamber. The inheritance isn't just a weapon, it's a teacher. Its first lesson is that power without wisdom leads to destruction. That's why it bonded with me specifically, not because I'm special, but because I'm an archaeologist. I study past mistakes. I understand that every choice has consequences that echo through time. Pretty words, Vic said dismissively. But words don't ensure proper use of power. No, Suhyun agreed. Which is why Earth proposes a formal treaty. The Inheritance Project, a joint initiative with oversight committees, regular inspections, and shared research findings. Humans crew and command the vessel, but we operate transparently under council observation. And if humanity misuses this power, Trelevan demanded, then the council intervenes, Suhyun said simply, with force if necessary. We're not asking for unchecked authority, we're asking for trust, earned through demonstrated responsibility. The debate continued for hours. Jiwan slipped away quietly, leaving the diplomats to their negotiations. She walked back to the inheritance, past security checkpoints and curious scientists, and entered through the doorway that opened only for her. Inside, the custodian's presence manifested as soft light. The council fears you. I know they should. Not because you will misuse power, but because you represent something they cannot control. Unpredictability, chaos, the possibility of change. Jiwan touched a wall panel, bringing up a star chart. The precursors chose us for a war we won't fight for 1,000 years. What if they were wrong? What if humans aren't special? Then the galaxy will face the coming storm without hope, the custodian replied. But I do not believe you are wrong. I waited 800 million years through the rise and fall of countless civilizations. None could activate this vessel. You did in moments using simple mathematics and human curiosity. That alone validates the precursors' faith. I'm afraid, Jiwan admitted quietly. Good. Fear is wisdom acknowledging danger. The absence of fear leads to catastrophe. The precursors were not afraid enough until too late. They believed their logic and technology made them invincible. Humans know better. You have never been invincible. You have always had to struggle, to fight, to hope against hope. That is your strength. Outside, negotiations continued. After 6 more days of intense debate, a treaty was signed. The inheritance would remain under human command, with Jiwan as its bonded captain. A mixed-species crew would be allowed aboard for research. Regular reports would be submitted to the council. And a containment protocol was established. A council fleet with orders to destroy the inheritance if humanity ever attempted conquest. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As Jiwan stood on the command throne for the first time officially, feeling the ship's systems connecting with her mind, she thought about history's weight. About the precursors who died believing they failed. About the future threat that would test everything humanity was. And she thought about her team. Mino's careful precision, Hyun's protective vigilance, Taeyeon's brilliant insights, about Ambassador Kang's diplomatic skill, about the alien colleagues who worked beside them despite their fears. The inside of the vessel was nothing like Jiwon expected. The corridor stretched ahead, walls made of the same strange material as the outside, but here they glowed with soft light. The air was clean and exactly 21 degrees, the perfect temperature for humans. That detail worried her. Why would something this old be comfortable for her species? Jiwon, please respond. Yun's voice came through her radio. What's happening? I'm okay, she said softly. I'm inside. The air is good. Temperature is comfortable. It's like it was waiting for us. Waiting for humans, Minho corrected. None of the other species could open it. Jiwon walked deeper into the corridor. Her camera sent everything back to the base camp. The walls got brighter as she approached them and dimmer after she passed. Sometimes holographic screens would flicker on, showing star maps, equations, and symbols she didn't know. But then she started knowing them. Minho, look at this. She stopped at a large display. These symbols look like ancient Earth languages. This one is like old writing from Mesopotamia. This one looks like early Chinese characters. She touched the display. It changed immediately, reorganizing everything into languages she could read. Korean, English, Chinese, Arabic. Every major human language appeared in order, like the vessel was learning from her. Greetings, child of Earth, a voice said. It was warm and human-sounding, though it came from everywhere at once. Jiwon jumped. Who are you? I am the custodian. I have waited 847 million years for your arrival. Back at camp, everyone went silent. The Velcrin researchers' crystal bodies dimmed. Boluth's jelly form stopped moving completely. That's before life developed on Earth, Hyun said quietly. The voice continued. I was built by the first ones, those you call the precursors. We planted life across this galaxy. We gave it the potential to grow. But we did not plant all life the same way. What do you mean? Jiwon asked. Your species, humanity, carries something unique, something we designed. You did not simply evolve naturally. You are our children, our legacy, our hope for a future we would never see. The words shocked everyone. Through the radio, Jiwon heard gasps and confused voices. The Velcrin were clicking rapidly. Boluth's translator couldn't keep up with his species' version of surprise. That can't be true, Thrisakal said. Humans evolved naturally on Earth, we have proof. Fossils, genetic evidence. Nothing suggests artificial changes. The evidence is that she is standing in a vessel that opens only for her, the custodian said gently. The changes we made were small. A few genetic adjustments here, a slight modification to brain development there. Nothing obvious. We didn't create you from scratch. We simply guided what was already developing. Jiwon felt dizzy. Why humans specifically? Because you have something extraordinary. Your species can recognize patterns, think in abstract ways, and hope even when hope makes no logical sense. You can believe two opposite things at the same time. You can imagine things that don't exist and then create them. You look at the empty darkness of space and see possibility, not fear. The custodian paused. Many intelligent species exist in this galaxy. Most follow predictable paths. They develop logic, mathematics, technology. They explore and expand and create order. But they lack something crucial. They lack imagination in its truest form. Other species are imaginative, Jiwon argued, thinking of her brilliant alien colleagues. They are creative within boundaries. The custodian corrected. Humans are creative beyond boundaries. You refuse to accept limits. You try things even when they seem impossible. That is what we needed. That is what we built you for. Built us for what? Hyun asked over the radio. For the test that is coming. The corridor suddenly grew larger, walls flowing outward to create a massive chamber. In the center was a holographic display showing the galaxy, but different. This showed possible futures, branching paths spreading out in every direction. In about 1,200 of your years, something will arrive, the custodian explained. An intelligence from beyond this galaxy. It is not evil or good. It simply exists. It consumes potential. It feeds on predictability, order, and logic. Every civilization it touches becomes perfectly efficient and perfectly sterile. Dead. The hologram showed futures collapsing, timelines narrowing to single points. We, the first ones, met it. We fought it, we lost. But before our end, we created you. A species so unpredictable, so creatively chaotic, that maybe you could win where we failed. Down's voice came through the radio, shaky. You made us into weapons. We made you into hope, the custodian replied. Weapons destroy. Hope creates. Hope sees darkness and lights a fire. Hope faces terrible odds and tries anyway. That is humanity's real strength. Jiwon steadied herself against a wall. And this vessel? This is the inheritance. It holds all the knowledge of the first ones, technology far beyond your current level, historical records, cultural information, and most importantly, training. Training for what? For the day when humanity must protect not just itself, but all life in this galaxy. The inheritance will activate only for humans because only humans can use it without being corrupted by certainty. Other species would use this knowledge to create perfect order, perfect systems. Humans will use it to create new possibilities. The chamber filled with more holographic displays. Each showed different abilities of the vessel. Weapons that could reshape reality itself. Defense systems working across multiple dimensions. Navigation technology that made current travel look primitive. And in the center, a command chair. The inheritance is yours, Dr. Park. Humanity's guardianship. It will bond with you, learn from you, change with you. When the time comes, it will help you teach your species what they must know. G1 looked at the chair, then back toward the exit. This is too much. I'm an archaeologist. I study old things and try to understand them. Exactly, the custodian agreed. You look at ancient mysteries and ask what they can teach us. That is why you entered first. Not the soldier, not the linguist, the one who studies the past so the future can learn. I need time. Time is limited, but I will give you what I can. Explore the inheritance. Learn what it offers. Talk with your colleagues. But understand this, the vessel is awake now. Other forces will sense it. Some will want to study it. Some will want to control it. Some will want to destroy it. Then we protect it, Hyun said. I'm calling the Galactic Council for help. No, the custodian said firmly. The Council will not protect the inheritance. They will try to regulate it, to share its knowledge fairly among all species. But this technology is not for all species. It is humanity's responsibility and humanity's gift. Ji-won closed her eyes. Millions of years of waiting, all leading to this moment. To her, she was no hero. She was a scientist who liked puzzles and old artifacts. But she was human, and humans were apparently made for impossible situations. Show me, she said finally. Show me everything. I need to understand what we're dealing with before any decisions get made. The command chair pulsed with light, welcoming her. Welcome aboard, Captain Park, the custodian said. Your training begins now. The next hours blurred together. The custodian showed her the vessel's capabilities. Weapons powerful enough to destroy solar systems. Shields strong enough to protect entire planets. Navigation systems that could open doorways to anywhere in the galaxy. Each system was more advanced than anything humanity or the Council possessed. But the custodian spent most time showing her something else. Mistakes. The archives contained case studies of civilizations that gained too much technology too fast. Records of the precursors' own errors. Warnings about power without wisdom. Why show me failures? Ji-won asked. Because the inheritance is not just a weapon or tool. It is a teacher. The first lesson is this. Power without understanding leads to destruction. That is why it bonded with you specifically. You are an archaeologist. You study the mistakes of the past. You understand that every choice has consequences that echo through time. Ji-won studied the displays showing the precursors' history. They had been incredibly advanced, able to do things that seemed like magic. But they had also been arrogant, certain of their superiority. When the entity from beyond arrived, they fought it with perfect logic and optimal strategies. And they lost. They couldn't adapt, Ji-won said slowly. They were too certain of the right way to fight. They couldn't imagine a different approach. Yes, they lacked what humans have in abundance, the ability to improvise, to try stupid ideas that somehow work, to make choices that defy logic but succeed anyway. Back at base camp, her team was dealing with chaos. The news had spread. Within hours, messages were coming from Earth, from the Galactic Council, from dozens of species across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know about the vessel. Everyone had questions. Hyun was trying to manage communications when Ji-won finally emerged from the inheritance 12 hours later. She looked exhausted but determined. We need to secure this site, she said. The custodian is right. Once the council knows what's really here, they'll try to take control. We need to decide what to do before that happens. What did you learn in there? Minyo asked. An ancient vessel unearthed. It responded only to a humanity. Fuck yeah. Science Fiction Story Part 1. The Discovery. The excavation site on Kepler 442b had been active for 3 standard years before they found it. Dr. Ji-won Park stood at the edge of the massive crater, her environmental suit sensors struggling to catalog the electromagnetic anomalies radiating from below. The dig team had uncovered what appeared to be a vessel, but not just any vessel. This thing was old. Impossibly old. How deep does it go? Ji-won asked, her voice crackling through the comm system. Her assistant, Min-ho Kim, consulted his datapad. At least 2 kilometers. Maybe more. The density scans can't penetrate the hull material. Whatever this thing is made of, it's not in our databases. The Galactic Council had funded this expedition as part of their ongoing archaeological survey of pre-spacefaring civilizations. Ji-won's team was composed of multiple species, 3 humans, 2 Velcrin researchers with their crystalline exoskeletons, and a Thulian navigator whose gelatinous form required a specialized containment suit. They had been searching for evidence of the precursors, the legendary first civilization that supposedly seeded the galaxy with technology millions of years ago. This might be it. Get the extraction team ready, Ji-won ordered. I want a full perimeter scan and atmospheric analysis before we go down there. The excavation took another 2 weeks. The vessel was enormous, roughly the size of a small moon, and buried under kilometers of sediment and ice. Its surface was smooth, almost organic, with patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. No seams, no obvious entry points, just a perfect, unbroken shell of unknown material that absorbed every scanning beam they directed at it. Commander Hyun Lee, the expedition's security chief, wasn't happy about any of it. This feels wrong, he muttered, watching the dig crews work from the command tent. Something this advanced, this old, and nobody knows what it is? The Council should have sent a military escort. The Council doesn't send military escorts to archaeological digs, Ji-won replied, not looking up from her research terminal. Besides, it's been dormant for millions of years. What's it going to do, wake up? She would regret those words. The breakthrough came when young Daeun Choi, a junior xenolinguist, noticed something odd about the vessel's surface patterns. They weren't random. They were language, or at least a precursor to language. Mathematical concepts rendered in geometric form, and they were repeating in a sequence. It's a lock, Daeun said excitedly, projecting her findings onto the main holo display, or maybe an interface. These patterns correspond to fundamental universal constants, the speed of light, Planck's constant, the gravitational constant. It's like a test. A test for what? Hyun asked. For intelligence, for technological capability, maybe for worthiness. Daeun zoomed in on a particular section. And look here, this sequence is incomplete. It's waiting for input. The Velcrin researchers, Thrisakal and Vorin, attempted to interface with the patterns first. Their species had the most advanced mathematical processing capabilities in known space. They approached the vessel's surface, their crystalline appendages glowing with computed solutions, and pressed them against the geometric sequence. Nothing happened. The Thulian navigator, Bolu Uth, tried next. His species could perceive 17 different dimensions simultaneously, and had cracked the hyperlane network that connected the galaxy. He extended a pseudopod toward the surface, his entire body pulsing with complex calculations. Still nothing. Maybe we need to work together, Min-ho suggested. A combined approach from multiple species. They tried that too. Every possible combination, every mathematical proof they could devise. The vessel remained inert, its surface patterns continuing their slow, patient rotation. Ji-won was running on her 3rd sleepless cycle when she approached the vessel alone. The rest of the team was back at base camp arguing about their next move. She stood before the massive structure, her hand resting against its cool, smooth surface. "What are you waiting for?" she whispered. And then, just out of curiosity, she completed the mathematical sequence herself. Not with advanced technology or dimensional perception, just with a piece of chalk on a portable slate, solving the equation the old-fashioned way. Basic calculus, human mathematics. She pressed her bare hand against the pattern. The vessel came alive. Light erupted across its surface, tracing along lines and contours that suddenly became visible. The geometric patterns began to move, rotate, reshape themselves into new configurations. And then a sound. Deep, resonant, thrumming through the ground itself. A doorway opened. Ji-won stumbled backward as a section of the hull simply ceased to exist, revealing a corridor within. Soft light emanated from inside, and the air that flowed out was breathable, warm, almost welcoming. Her comm unit exploded with voices. G1, what did you do? Status report. We're reading massive energy spikes. Dr. Park, step away from the vessel immediately. But G1 didn't step away. She stepped forward into the ancient ship that had waited millions of years to open. And somewhere deep within its systems, something ancient stirred, recognizing at last what it had been designed to wait for. A human. Part 2. First contact with the past. The interior of the vessel was nothing like G1 expected. The corridor stretched before her, walls composed of the same mysterious material as the hull. But here they pulsed with soft bioluminescence. The air was clean, processed, and maintained at exactly 21 degrees Celsius. Optimal human comfort temperature. That detail didn't escape her notice. G1, please respond. Yun's voice crackled through her comm. What's your status? I'm fine, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm inside. The atmosphere is breathable. Temperature is comfortable. It's like it was expecting us. Expecting humans, you mean? Minho corrected. None of the other species could activate it. G1 moved deeper into the corridor, her helmet-mounted camera transmitting everything back to the base camp. The walls seemed to respond to her presence, brightening as she approached, dimming behind her as she passed. Occasionally, holographic displays would flicker to life, showing star charts, mathematical equations, and symbols she didn't recognize. But then she began to recognize them. Minho, are you seeing this? She stopped before a large display panel. These symbols, some of them are proto-linguistic ancestors of ancient Earth languages. This one here looks like pre-cuneiform. This one resembles Oracle bone script. And this? Her voice trailed off as she touched the display. It responded immediately, reorganizing the symbols into something more familiar. Korean, English, Chinese, Arabic. Every major human language appeared in sequence, as if the vessel was learning from her touch, adapting to her neural patterns. Greetings. Child of Earth, a voice suddenly spoke, clear, warm and distinctly human in tone, though it came from everywhere at once. G1 jumped. Who's there? I am the custodian. I have waited 847 million years for your arrival. Back at base camp, the entire team fell silent. The Velcrin researchers' crystalline structures dimmed with confusion. Boluth's gelatinous form stopped its constant motion. 57 million years? Hyun repeated. That's before complex life evolved on Earth. The voice continued, seemingly aware of all their reactions. I was built by the first ones, the civilization you call the precursors. We seeded this galaxy with life, with potential, with possibility, but we did not seed all equally. What does that mean? Ji-won asked, her hand still on the display panel. Your species, humanity, carries within it something unique, something we designed. You are not merely another intelligent species that evolved naturally. You are our children, our legacy, our gift to a future we knew we would never see. The implications hit like a shockwave. Ji-won heard gasps and exclamations through the comm channel. The Velcrin were exchanging rapid, agitated clicks. Boluth's translator struggled to keep up with his species' equivalent of stunned disbelief. That's impossible. Thrisakal's translated voice cut through the chaos. Humans evolved naturally on Earth. We have the complete fossil record. The genetic lineage. There's no evidence of artificial. The evidence is standing in a vessel that responds only to her touch. The custodian interrupted gently. The modifications we made were subtle. A few genetic sequences here, a slight adjustment to neurological development there. Nothing that would be obvious to conventional investigation. We didn't create you from nothing. We simply guided what was already there. Ji-won's mind reeled. Why humans specifically? Because you possess something extraordinary. Your species has an unusual capacity for pattern recognition, abstract thinking, and irrational hope. You can hold contradictory ideas simultaneously. You can imagine things that do not exist and then bring them into being. You can look at the infinite darkness of space and see not terror, but possibility. The custodian paused, as if gathering thoughts. The galaxy has produced many intelligent species. Most follow predictable patterns. They develop logic, mathematics, technology. They expand, explore, establish order. But they lack something essential. They lack what you call imagination. They lack the ability to see beyond what is to what could be.